How's it going, Ham Fam? I'm Josh KI6NAZ. Today we are going to look at a talk I gave to the Findlay, Ohio Radio Club for their Ham Fest, which was last weekend. The topic of discussion was moving forward with ham radio, or more specifically, how to bring new people into ham radio and keep them motivated. So when you hear terms like I'm talking about what to do within a club, well, just think of that as what you could do personally, what you could do with your own capabilities and the experiences you have. Even if you're starting out, you may be able to find things that you may be able to use in the future. So thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it's a bit different than my normal videos, but maybe you'll get something out of it, and I would love to hear your thoughts, so please post them below. Let's get started. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I guess I can take, well, I'll leave them on in case Evan's got to reach out to me. Okay, so my name is Josh. KI6NAZ is my amateur radio call sign. I run the Ham Radio Crash Course YouTube channel, which is right up there. And we'll just dive right in. Let's get started, because then it saves some time on the back end for Q&A if anybody has any questions. Okay, so I often mentioned on my channel as a term, I say moving forward with ham radio. So what does that mean? Generally, it means a couple of things, but I'll just talk through this a little bit, and then we'll keep going. So often mentioned, some of you probably say this, I definitely say it, is that ham radio is a marathon, not a sprint. Often, we always have a friend, right, that I gotta go buy this Yaesu FTM 400, and I gotta get the mobile antenna, and I gotta do it this weekend because I got this coming up, and it's always a race to see how much gear they can get and assemble and all that stuff. And sometimes, it's better to just kind of have a plan and work through it. Often a budget too. I know my wife likes it when I budget things. Most do not start out with intrinsic knowledge in the many different areas of this hobby. It's very complex. So you'll get people that are retired military, so they're used to radios that they used in that space, and so there's a bit of a parallel there. You have first responders that have the radios that they use, or you've got engineer types and people that like to hack around with things. So they'll have some knowledge, but then they start to look at new shiny areas of ham radio, like, hey, I just heard about APRS. Do you know anything about it? Yeah, okay, well, hey, let's talk about it. Or satellite operation. HF is a big thing, particularly when the new technicians upgrade to general and they're looking for, hey, what's the next new thing that I can get into? Well, obviously HF is that big area. Recount to yourself, for all you in the room who've answered a question of someone, that's maybe a younger ham or just someone that is new to a certain aspect of a hobby that you knew something about, and you help them solve a problem, and you kind of see that the bulb go on, or the light in their eyes start shining. That's always a really good feeling, and that's kind of what this is all about. Moving forward with ham radio is a concept of trying to experience more within the hobby, and all those things you can experience within the hobby will go in your brain, and just by the nature of our human brains, they'll build these little mental pathways that help bridge connections that are similar to things you've done in the past, to help you remember, oh, hey, I built this dipole once, and now I'm going to go do this thing. It's like, oh, okay, I can see that if I do this, that, and the other, how this makes sense. Because at the end of the day, ham radio is not black magic or mythical. It's all based off of science and facts that we know, and there is information we can look up to get a better understanding. So that's kind of the idea. It's try to experience more and try and remember what we can of it, and see how we can help others along the way. So a disclaimer here, everything I'm talking about, because this is going to be kind of focused towards my experiences in bringing new people into the hobby, and also energizing the people that are kind of already there or knew about it, or kind of got their technician and just kind of been sitting there for a little while. So all my points here don't take away from any of the great work that everybody else has been doing in this space. The people who go out to schools, that work with educators, who get out and do all the myriad things that everybody's doing. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a great job. All my points are here, just my observations, and they, from my point of view, all live in the same world and are all helping the hobby. So again, my name is Josh, KI6NAZ is my call sign. I've been an aerospace engineer for software predominantly since 2004. I joined YouTube in 2006, and it was largely at my wife recommending, hey, you got a lot of hobbies that are all caked around the house. Why don't you make YouTube videos about that and kind of help people get started in the different hobbies that you were in? At about 2007, a engineer, when I was still working at Boeing, reached out to me and he's like, hey, we were working on a satellite ground station, a software-defined radio, as it were. And he said, hey, I think you like this radio stuff. I'm a amateur radio operator. You should look into ham radio. And so my natural questions were, well, what is it? Can you explain it? All that stuff. Great guy. And he ended up taking me to the HRO in Anaheim. That's where I got my first radio, which is a Yaesu FT60. So it started back in 2007. And around 2018, I kind of skewed my channel to only amateur radio. And a couple of things, hold on one second. A couple of things for that was after making a lot of YouTube videos, a lot. I got to the point where I was like, well, I could keep doing all these little hobbies where I'm jumping around and all that stuff, but really, I'm really just really passionate about radio. So why not just make the whole thing radio? And that's what I did. And so I focused that, started doing live streams, which kind of looks like the format you're looking at me right now, and trying to answer questions, help people along the way, and honestly, help myself because I get to experience a lot of fun stuff by bringing it to you all. So if you do watch, thank you so much. I appreciate it. As of today, I'm around 208,000 subscribers, and I put that 817 on the end because I saw it last night and said, hey, that's funny. That's what it was last night for my subscription. My average views on a month is 400 to 500,000 people, which is crazy to me. So I'm humbled, and I very much appreciate it. So thank you again if you do watch. And I got some metrics here that I think might be helpful. So often the comment comes up is, boy, this is a real male-driven hobby. And I think you can kind of get that from looking at my breakdown of who watches my videos. My primary market in the video space is males 35 to 64 years old. And you can see from that 35 point down to 64, it's pretty even, 21%, 22%, 19.4%. And only about 2.2% of the people that watch my videos are female. And so I have some opinions on that. And about a year ago, I started a podcast with my wife called the Ham Radio Crash Course. And we bring that up a lot, and we talk about some things, and I've learned a lot through her, and we're going to dip into that a little bit. So major point right at this point from what I've learned, my experiences, and it may echo yours, is that ham radio tends to be a hobby and service that middle-aged males are attracted to. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. This is no major groundbreaking stuff I'm mentioning yet. So ham radio to me, as I've gotten more involved, and in fact I'm wearing a shirt of a group that reached out to me. These are not ham radio operators. These are individuals who they like to shoot firearms. They're target shooters, retired military. They have a kind of a preparedness-minded kind of thing. They like to camp. They like to do all that stuff. And they're off-roaders. I started to realize that ham radio is a really good adjacent hobby. And that doesn't mean it won't become someone's primary hobby one day. But ham radio has a ton to offer to people that are just out doing whatever it is they like to do, right? So they tend to be very passionate about something, some aspect of a hobby that works really well with ham radio. What's a great example? Off-roading, right? There's a ton of people that are starting to move away from CB radios, and they're either getting into GMRS or hopefully getting into amateur radio, which I argue offers more opportunities for them. You have emergency preparedness-minded people that, I'm in Southern California, so when there was an earthquake or always an earthquake of some kind. I lived in Whittier Narrows area in 1986 for the Whittier Narrows earthquake, and we lived without power and gas for about a week or so. And that shaped a lot of my feelings about preparedness, not being a prepper as a four-letter word, but just being able to be self-sustaining. And communications is vital in that. Communications is paramount, particularly during emergency, as we hear of many different natural disasters that occur. Hikers and campers, great adjacent hobby. I mean, Summits on the Air exists for a very specific reason. It's because it's a lot of fun to bring small little radios out into the field and have fun with that. And you'd be surprised. If you talk to somebody who's very serious about backpacking and you explain what Summits on the Air is, these are people that are probably already personally competitive with themselves. They want to climb to the top of mountains and get that into their personal log of mountains that they've climbed. And so hikers and campers just fit right in perfectly. Campers, RVers, all that stuff. People living off-grid, right? bad internet, bad cell phone connections, ham radio fits in right there. For me personally, software engineering and tinkerers, people who like to play around with things like Raspberry Pis, they make software, maybe they make apps for their phone. The hacker community gets mentioned a lot, but I feel like that's also a very broad brush. Just like you say, all hams are this way. Well, you can't say all hackers are this way, but it is a good adjacent hobby. So there are many people in our local communities that all identify with these groups. I'm sure in Findlay it's the same way. There's a ton of people that are doing every one of these things, most likely. Maybe not the summits on the air so much, I appreciate, but you get the idea that there's a lot of people out there that are doing that same kind of stuff. So a couple of just shots of me doing different aspects of things. That's Bertha Peak in Big Bear, California, about 8,400 feet above sea level, which is pretty crazy because you see mountains that are taller than it in the background, and we're already at 8,600 or 8,400 feet. So pretty cool little shot there. And that is a micro BidX that I was attaching that little touchscreen to. So not adjacent to each other. You're not going to necessarily go out in the field with your micro BidX, but that's all a part of this umbrella that is ham radio. So who I feel are the easiest people to convert and bring into ham radio, and this isn't like some kind of pervasive scheme. This is just people I talk to that seem like they're the most interested, could become the most passionate about radio. Tend to be what I found, people that are 25 to 40 years old, people that are established in their careers, some disposable income, which, will vary from, who they are, where they're at. And they're looking for hobbies that they can do from home or outdoors. This came up in the podcast with my wife. One of the hobbies that I really enjoyed doing was prospecting, actually going out. California still has gold-bearing placer rivers not too far from my house, and I would go out with 5 Homer buckets, fill them up, run the material through the sluice box, all that stuff. But what was I doing when I was out there? I had no cell phone reception. I was largely alone. I was hiking into areas that are very off-trail, right, looking for gold, basically. And so ham radio fit into that really well, but then I could come home and I could turn on my mobile radio or my base station, and I could still talk locally. My wife really liked it when I kind of decided to focus on amateur radio because I can just stay at home. I can work on antennas here, and then when I go out to play radio, if I'm going to do parks on the air or something like that, well, it's generally pretty safe. I'm going to be in a park, and I'm going to be trying to make contacts with other like-minded people, and I'll be on in communication, if not cell phone. She can find out where I'm at with APRS or whatnot. Individuals who are heads of family, maybe younger families, also really, really good people to bring into the hobby, or at least introduce them to the hobby, because they're generally going to have children, and they can also, show their spouses or significant others what ham radio has to offer just by them living it, just by them using it. And generally people 25 to 40 have got that energy to get out there and kind of make things happen. Obviously Evan and the volunteers, I'm assuming some of them fit into this age group that are involved in the ham fest you're running, got the energy to get out there and kind of be the face of ham radio, which I think is important. From my experience, and this is from my wife and things she's told me, that females that become interested in amateur radio are looking at it in a lot of ways as the aspects that give back to the community, that support the local community. Closest example to that is emergency preparedness. My wife has a comms plan, and we're working through a process of trying to bring radio understanding to our neighbors. So what does that look like? Handing out GMRS radios or FRS radios for legality purposes to neighbors and explaining, hey, this is a little low-powered handy-talkie. You can talk to us, but if you want to get out further, you might want to consider your license. Good, opens the door for more discussion. So my biggest takeaway from looking at my metrics on who watches my videos, the comments that I get on my videos, what I see in the live chats, live stream, the Facebook group, the Discords that we run, all that stuff, is that really the best way to get a ham and keep a ham and to help this, moving forward with ham radio concept is help others live their adventure. And hopefully they'll bring a radio along with them when they do it. And that to me is a big win. So some of the lessons I've learned from making videos are the videos where I focus on explaining that everyone watching can do this too. Trying to boil this down into chunks or information that hopefully is approachable, and at least if you're not at the point of understanding, there's kind of a path to get there. I don't own any secret information. I very much follow the, hey, you don't own an ARRL handbook? You should probably get one. They're inexpensive. By the way, I've got the 2021 version right here. I was told by someone at the ARRL they're sticking with the multi-volume versions of that, which I think is good, because you show somebody this and they get a little apprehensive. It's a little daunting looking at this, but also a good self-defense weapon. I don't know if anybody's ever considered that, but leave that in the shack just in case things get bad. Or other things to mention is I've learned a lot from other hams older than me, hams younger than me, that, again, are focused in very specific niches in the hobby. And I find that it's really great if we say, hey, I don't know, I learned this from this ham. It helped me a lot. You should try it, particularly in the live streams and whatnot. That helps a lot. It's still that the way I learned or was able to bring this video out or do this live stream instruction was that I took a lot of focused time to do it. Just like practicing an instrument or whatever, it takes time to learn this stuff, and particularly time to learn how to convey the information in a way that seems straightforward and approachable, and again, points that you can do this too. And definitely all along the way, I fail many times. I've definitely cut many a dipole wrong and had to scrap wire or keep it in the bins for later use. Where, again, to reiterate what I said, is that I'm trying to help people live their own adventure, maybe a strong word, but enjoy their own aspects of the hobby. Find out something, find out what they need help with, the hurdle they're having, help them cross it, and then let them continue to move forward, because that's kind of the point. If someone says, hey, I tried to do it this way, I wasted an afternoon in a park trying to activate, then I would say, hey, the weekend before, set your antenna up at home, get it squared away, make sure the radio you're using is all charged up, and you've got it set up exactly how you want to go use it in the field, see how you do, and then you're going to be more confident when you go out in the field to do parks on the air. When you go to HRO, here's the tip. When you go to HRO, go ahead and buy that extra coax adapter. You're helping people by saying, hey, these are the pitfalls I've stumbled on the way, like forgetting my PL259 to BNC adapter. And so, that's definitely happened when I've gone in the field. So just remind people, hey, everybody forgets, and make a list of things when you go out in the field. That bright orange gear snake, here's another pro tip. That bright orange gear snake you see at Walmart, that big coil, go buy some of that. It's invaluable for tying things up to your pack, or if you've got a mast that you want to put on the side of an RV or a fence post, that orange gear snake is great. All right, so more things I've learned along the way is that most hams at all levels want very specific help in solving a problem, and then they kind of want to get on with it. At least that's been my experience with the pool of people that I've talked to. As we probably know, we experience many issues kind of as we explore the hobby, as we learn, again, new things. Hey, I've got this handy talkie. It's supposed to do APRS, but I don't really understand what that is. Oh, okay. Well, have you heard of AX25? Have you heard of packet radio? Because those two things are tied together. And if you get kind of a concept of what that is, that may make more sense why, I've got to turn the TNC on, the terminal node controller on the radio, to be able to receive those packets and then also transmit those packets so that people can know where I'm at, if that's what I was so inclined to do. Things like building your first dipole. Everybody's kind of been through this or are soon to experience it. There's all kinds of lessons learned that people have, other hams, fellow hams in your club have. So again, it's all these little problems that we've all generally experienced, I think anyway, and that the best thing that we can do often, and I'm speaking for myself via my YouTube, but I think a lot of this, hopefully, you're all hearing and say, okay, I can apply this to my club or the events we hold. So building your first dipole, you could have an event on doing that, showing people how to solder, learning to solder, the right ways to do it, the right irons to buy, the wrong irons, don't buy those irons, that kind of thing. Programming in HT, getting set up on digital modes, which has been amazing this last year, particularly with COVID. Running POTA and SOTA activations, logging in general, particularly logging in the field. Oh my gosh, you set up LOTW? Can you show me how to do it? I got like 18 postcards from the ARRL. I'm not supposed to know I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Hams are looking for effective solutions to problems to get them back on the road to enjoying radio. That's what I've found. I get the most feedback from people when they get stuck and they need something to kind of help them bridge the gap. Ham clubs are fantastic for that, but we got to have the lines of communication open to capitalize. Couple examples. There's a dipole, and there's my son. He turned 8 this weekend. And there's a programming cable. Boy, that has been a big big thing in my life is Baofang programming. Oddly enough, a lot of my videos are very popular in the Baofang programming area, but also just HT programming in general. So popular. So many people are interested in that. Now, kind of coming back a step, has ham radio changed, or has society changed? We still have all these things we want to do in ham radio, things that we're interested in. But at the same time, it seems like as social media is getting more popular, people are getting on the internet, there is less absolute focus in just mastery of radio sometimes. It can appear that way. Well, from my point of view, we live in this changing world with regards to technology. There's new stuff coming out all the time, new social medias, new way to convey information. And that's, I think, part of it. And is it affecting radio? Sure. But it's both good and bad from my point of view. In the years past, ham radio was a great option for communicating, the literal one-to-one communication, right? I remember a time before there was long distance, the way you had MCI and all that fun stuff, and it was really unreliable. And so that people used ham radio a lot of the time. So that was great. Repeaters with auto patch comes to mind here, right, for one-to-one communication. People used to use ham radio before there were cell phones to talk to their loved ones or whatnot, or just make random phone calls. And again, it wasn't just communication. The actual means of communicating over radio was how people got together to solve their particular problems. Like, this antenna's kind of not working right for me. What should I try? This radio, hey, I got the same radio you have. I have this problem. My equalizer's all screwed up, or I can't get the compressor to work, or how do I sound? I've been playing with it. What do you think? So with the introduction of the internet in the 90s, we got this surge of the one-to-one communication kind of being available to everyone. Anyone can reach out, figure out how to communicate with someone very easily. And that extends to cell phones, right? How are we using cell phones today? Most people don't even want to take a phone call. They just text me. I'll hit you up on the text. So the internet's helped to make all that faster and easier. But it's added, for us, the ability to convey information much more efficiently. So case in point, how many people have been looking for something specific, like what's a good example? I was just doing this the other day. Oh, actually, I'm looking back to get into ALE again, and I started pulling up old blogs on people who were running and setting up ALE stations, and those were blogs that people made years ago, right? They just kind of typed out their trials and tribulations and explained how they got something working. And that was invaluable. If we were still in the time where you'd have to go on a repeater, right, with your handy-talkie or whatever, and talk to somebody, find somebody with ALE experience, it would have been daunting. Most people wouldn't have gone any further than that. But now with the internet and these kind of, I call them evergreen, it's a term we use in YouTube, evergreen content, where if you make something and you post it, it's kind of there forever. So the blogs, even the Facebook posts, videos, of course, all that stuff kind of lives forever. And it's great because it's kind of asymmetrical, meaning I could post that blog, or someone posted that blog about ALE multiple years ago, and I just searched it up and said, oh, hey, that's great. I can do this, or I don't have to go bug this person, or I can if I get really stuck. But in general, the internet has helped open the doors for ham radio, particularly in the area of what I was mentioning is people getting caught with these hurdles and things that they need a solution for. They need help in bridging. With that said, here's the downside of the internet. The internet is a poor replacement for in-person experiences. And I think a vital part of learning, particularly ham radio, is in-person demonstration and experiences. I love the live stream format. I love what I'm doing here, but there is no way I can be as proactive in gauging and understanding or answering every question that people have. Last night, there was 400 people watching my show. I definitely know people turned their computer off or phone off, and thought to themselves, well, I understand what QRP radios are now. I understand resonant antennas are good, but ... some question that I didn't answer. If you scale that down to in-person, then that person is getting really good information from hopefully someone that's knowledgeable. And I think that's still the best. And that's where clubs, I think, still are one of the best areas for that. because there's a personal connection, a friendship, because people are local, they can talk together, they can get together. And so it can start out as something online, like a Zoom meeting for a club, but then it could be like, oh, hey, Bob mentioned he just got his APRS handy talkie on the air. I'm interested in that. Or John just did a Raspberry Pi build. I don't really know much about Raspberry Pi, but I'm kind of interested by it because it's like $30-40 for one, and it's basically a tiny little computer. Well, that sounds like fun. Let's try that out. So to continue this a little bit, and this should, if you're hearing me talk about this, kind of the idea is if you've got a club, or if you have a platform where you have people that want to come together and hear you talk or hear other people that know about ham radio talk, my biggest recommendation is show, don't tell. That's a YouTuber's motto, by the way, or just kind of any content creator's motto is show, don't tell. I can make a video where I'm just looking at the screen, just talking at you, which I'm kind of doing with the slides, I appreciate, but a little bit different platform. But the idea is to demonstrate, show the use of the actual equipment, the radio, et cetera, et cetera. Clubs are great for this because that builds the knowledge even faster. And I think we all know, why is there a get on the air table at field day? Why do we put people on the air as fast as possible? Why do we try and get them to use the radio as fast as possible? Because that's the best way to build confidence and build knowledge and education into this new ham or this person experiencing it for the first time. Online or in-person learning by seeing an example while listening to explanations. That's key, I think, for me. Almost everything in ham radio can be demonstrated. Almost. And while providing a working description of why you would do what you're demonstrating. Explaining, oh, here's a antenna analyzer. We're gonna adjust the legs of that dipole we built today in the club, and I'm gonna explain how to do that. Well, hey, what's this sweep thing mean? Oh, okay, well that's the bandwidth of the antenna that if we were to transmit, it will be effectively at the lowest point, a 1-to-1 SWR, something along those lines. Explaining why. Why do we use this? Well, that big salad bowl shape that's on the antenna analyzer makes it really easy to get a view of where your antenna is the most effective when transmitting, and will make your radio happy because it's giving that 50 ohm resistance that it's looking for. Club talks in person or online are all great for demonstrating. Break out the radios if you're doing a talk. Show common use cases or go through simple stuff. Programming a handy talkie. How valuable is that? It's super valuable to a lot of people. Set up antennas, like literally set them up. Again, field day exists for a reason. There's so many people who get energized and come out of field day like, I got to be a ham. I want to become a ham because of how much fun it is and the demonstration and the examples that people see. Seeing is believing, but you also need a little bit of instruction to go along with that to increase the retention. So here's a live stream that I did in Big Bear, California. That laptop was, connected to a camera and a microphone, and then I've got my ICOM IC705. And you can only see one antenna in the background on the other shot, but there's a DX commander to the right of that tree, and there was another two antennas to the left. And so I did a camera shot, which you can see on the tripod there, where I showed each antenna that I was going to be demonstrating and doing a bit of a comparison with, and I would go through the parts of it, explain, who makes it, where they could get it if they were so interested, and then we did a real-time propagation test with it to see, hey, is this actually effective? Is it useful? Is it good? All that stuff. All right. So you're hearing me talk about some of this stuff. Maybe it resonates a little bit. There's a good word for a ham talk at a ham fest. So my club wants to add more members. How does this help me? All the stuff I've talked about. Well, again, let's use that key phrase, show, don't tell. Host a simple ham radio event. Okay, now this is particularly targeted to bringing in new members and introducing people to ham radio. Host a simple radio event. Keyword simple. Have all the members post about it in their social media accounts. Nothing fancy, just saying, hey, we're going to do a live radio demonstration or ham radio demonstration for emergency preparedness. And we're going to be at this park, this date, this time. and just post it on your social media. Nothing huge, but if everybody does it, right, social media, particularly Facebook, works on a friend of friend network type of idea, right? So just you being a member of the community says, hey, I'm a ham. A bunch of hams are going to get together. We're going to have some radios out there. We'd like you to come out if anyone's interested. We'd like to help people get better understanding on emergency communication. Or let me be really specific. Not MCOM in the sense of being associated with a first responder, but emergency communication of local community, your local neighborhood. If the cell phones go down in your neighborhood, how will we communicate? Do we need to communicate? Why would we communicate? How to talk about an emergency plan, that kind of thing. This is just one example. Reach out to local community groups that are planning that you're planning a radio education event. It could be CERT, right? CERT isn't necessarily related to communications, but it definitely should be from my point of view. Neighborhood watch, huge. Rod and gun clubs. You're going outdoors, particularly fishing or camping. It seems like a good idea to have a radio with you. Well, what type of radio? How should I program it? What is a PRS? That may be a little bit deeper down the road, but hiking groups. Again, I mentioned hiking groups. If you have an REI or an outdoors center, there's generally a bulletin board where you can post local events, and why not post a ham radio event that you're doing? Have the members demonstrate their specific expertise with their radios. So if you have somebody that is, again, they like to do mobile installs in cars. It's a park. Let's wheel that car out here and let's demonstrate what they went through, what they did, how they do what they do, and demonstrate why this is the right way to do it. Oh, I put the antenna on the roof right in the center because that's where you get the best propagation from the antenna, et cetera, et cetera. Show why, show the thoughts, talk about it, answer lots of questions. The big thing, though, provide the attendees with an email or something easy that they can reach out if they have further questions. Often, which I'm assuming this happens with just the members in your own clubs, you do a talk, right? You talk for an hour. You've got visual aids. You've got a whiteboard behind you. You've got slides. You are blasting people with the fire hose of information. That needs to congeal in the brain a bit. And I've found that if you've got a capability where the individuals can reach back and say, hey, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I had this thought. Can you help me, or can you explain this a little bit more? I have a good example of this. Ham Radio TV, who's a YouTube channel, we did something called the YouTube Ham Fest, and he brought out somebody who is an expert with the NEC code for specifically grounding, and I loved the talk. It was such a good talk. His slides were so on point. Really, really good explainer on what he was trying to do in properly grounding his station to attain NEC code compliance. And I ultimately had to email him. And thankfully, he put his email at the end and had contact information, all that stuff. And he was great. He was real quick in responding back, and I was able to solve my problem. In fact, I ended up rerouting all the coax to my HF antennas. Sorry about that. You don't need to see that. That's my my YouTube live stream pop up when somebody subscribes. Anyway, thanks for subscribing, whoever that was. So it was a great time to be able to just reach out to somebody quickly and get an answer. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to have an event where you're introduced to people to radio, make sure you drop something that they can get in touch with somebody. A mailbox that people actually check is a good idea. Okay, stick to what you're good at, right? If you got club members that do POTA, then maybe reach out to campers. If you kit build, reach out to local hackerspaces. And a hackerspace, if those don't know, I'm assuming most people know what it is. It's kind of it can be a club. It's often a community area where they have things like 3D printers and soldering irons. Some have laser etching capability. Some even go so far as to have oscilloscopes and other test equipment. And it's really cool because they get together and they do little projects. The hackerspace, if you got one locally and you can reach out to them and you can say, hey, we're a ham radio club. We have these little projects we can do with your group. If you're interested, let us know. Fantastic group of people, and they're likely super, super interested in talking with you if you haven't. Okay, so here's the flip side of that. We have a good club, lots of members, but our meetings have low attendance. I don't think I'm surprising anybody when I say, hey, get online. Go do Zoom meetings. We've been doing that for over a year because of COVID-19. Zoom meetings can be recorded and hosted online. I'm recording it right now, and it may be hosted online, or we'll figure out what Evan wants to do with it. I recommend, this is me, that you take that video and you create a YouTube account for your club and you upload it as an unlisted video, meaning it's not out to the public unless you want it to be. You can do that if you want. But unlisted means that it's just a special link. You provide that to the members in an email or whatever, and then they can get on and look at the video just right there through YouTube. You don't need to do this file transfer of trying to figure out how I'm going to get a 500 megabyte video to someone. Let YouTube handle it. So do that. I highly recommend that. People can engage from the comforts of their home with online meeting. I don't think, again, I'm telling anybody new information. It's a lot of fun to do online meetings, particularly for getting people to come together in Zoom and just kind of talking about what they're doing with ham radio. Or maybe you do actually have slides, kind of like we're doing right now. You can share a lot with a modest home setup, but I do have a couple of ideas and thoughts on this. If you're going to do Zoom meetings and you're going to be the presenter, kind of like I am right now, right? Get yourself a decent camera. Laptop cameras are horrible. This webcam right there is a Logitech C920. They are 1080p HD. They are good enough. The trick with them is you need to add lighting. Get yourself a bright blue bulb, like a 5,000, 6,000 Kelvin bulb, one that looks blue kind of, and kind of get it pointed right at you, and it gives your face a little bit more clarity. But webcams on laptops are notoriously bad. Also, audio. We're all ham, so audio is very important, and no doubt it's important on Zoom too. So make sure if you're going to be recording it and you're going to put it up for members to listen to later on the back end, try to get a good camera. Try to get good microphones, and it could just be earbud, over the ear microphone with a boom. You just need to interface it into your computer. It's not that difficult to do, and there's plenty of YouTube videos and online tutorials to do it. So I'm not saying anybody does any of the things that are here, but I've found these are the things not to do when reaching out to your community, when reaching out. Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. When holding meetings, whatever. Try to turn someone into a ham without considering how it will benefit them or understand their interests. If all you're talking about is, I'm into big HF antennas and I got this huge, multi-beam 100-foot tower, and right now I'm rebuilding this amplifier, and you're talking to somebody that's a potential technician, may not get it exactly unless you're going to bring them into the shack and show them, demonstrate them, take the time in why they should be interested. What not to do. Help a ham by demonstrating their failures or making them feel bad about them. Wasn't this in the license exam? Hopefully no one says that, right? Nobody's ever said that before. Because we all screw up. I screw up constantly. I forget things all the time. That's why, again, going back to the handbook, that's why things like this exist. The license exam isn't a memory test. It's not your ability to hang on to sometimes reductive information for as long as forever, but that you can understand that information and then you can potentially use it in the future for whatever it is you're working for. And again, pull up the handbook, pull up online tutorials, pull up online information, and you can figure it out pretty quickly. What not to do. Strengthen the hobby by tearing aspects of it down that I don't appreciate or participate in. The infighting in ham radio is not unique to this hobby among other hobbies, right? Off-road community, Jeep guys, Jeeps are the best. Every other off-road vehicle is trash. Not everybody feels this way, but some do. Ham radio is full of tons of little niches and pockets that may not be interesting to you, and you may not want to talk about it. That's okay. But denigrating it's probably never a good idea because it's never building up the hobby, and we should always just want to build up the hobby. What not to do. Get upset at a stupid question. Anytime you get upset about a stupid question, just think to yourself, Josh has answered, why doesn't my Baofang programming cable work with my radio? Over 200 times, at least 200 times. I get emails constantly, particularly on Baofang programming cables. And sadly, I'll mention if you guys get this question too. Even if they have the right cable, some of these Baofangs now, a lot of the newer ones, they have a narrower kind of opening for the plug. You got to get in there and push that thing hard. And so most people have the right cable, right drivers, it's plugged into their computer, doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because it's not fully engaged in the radio. So there's a pro tip. What to do? Have an open door policy for questions. Seriously, if you're going to reach out to the community, if you're going to have a website, make sure you got an email box that goes to a human being. Make sure you're answering questions. Break down complex topics into parts that you can demonstrate. And that means keep it simple. If it's simple, fine. Start simple, and then you can just build on that. If you don't know the how to do this stuff, great. Start where you think you're supposed to start and have a walkthrough. Maybe you're not the maybe you don't need to be the, like, I'm conveying information to you now. Maybe it's hey, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I want to try this together with all of you, and let's see if we can collaborate and make this thing work. Like programming a Raspberry Pi. Explore the why of a question. It's often easier to fire off a few quick steps to somebody. Oh, that Baofang programming cable, you got to plug it into there and then go into this and drop down, select the radio, select the right serial port, and then there you go. But it's oftentimes better to say, well, this cable has an FTDI chipset in it. Why that's important, or at least why I think that's important, is when I plug it into my computer knows how to use it already. Some of these other chips, which are called prolific chips, they are driver-based that is specific to that one cable and how it's used. So that means if you were to switch cables or switch radios, you need to do a new driver install. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes I don't really trust the little CD that comes in the bag that came from China. So I'm more likely to use the FTDI cable because it's a standardized chip that we know about and can use. That's an example. The understand why will lead to more complete knowledge that will answer the questions in the future, or hopefully bridge some kind of pathway that will lead to someone solving their own problem in the future. Be a constant learner. Everybody should learn the new things that come out in the hobby. I won't say dive in if you have absolutely no interest in it. At least understand the concept of it, what it is, how it works. I feel like now with everybody having a computer at home, even if you do weak signal stuff, VHF, UHF, or your primary HF, I think everybody should try and experience FT8. And if they've done that, maybe look at WinLink, JSA call, at least get an understanding of how it works. So then you can at least have a more full knowledge when you answer a question, or you have an opinion that you want to convey. For me, I think of all this as knowledge arrows that go into my mental quiver. So I want to pick up new interesting things, learn enough about it that I feel like I can talk about it, and then I'm either going to keep doing it or I'm going to move on to other fun things. Okay, so speaking of open door policies, here is how you can reach me. It's hajnasi@gmail.com is the YouTube, or is the email link for my channel. That's the best way to contact me if you have questions, thoughts, and it can be beyond ham radio. It can be about this video stuff, how to do it effectively. If your club wants to get more serious about actually making a YouTube channel where they publish public videos, I'll take your comments and questions on that. And then there's all that world of social medias. So you can take a screenshot of that if you see this online, or if you go to any one of my videos, Ham Radio Crash Course on YouTube, those are the links right there. So that's my slides. I think that was it. Yep, I'll leave that up there. You guys, I think I'm the last one, so hopefully it was a success. Did everybody have a great time out there?
Oh, yeah. It's been good.
Okay, very good to hear. All right, everybody, you have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, bye. And if you made it this far, really do appreciate you watching. Please leave your comments below. Consider giving me that thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already. But yeah, there was a lot covered. Hopefully there was something interesting or maybe thought-provoking that you may be able to use. I'd love to hear about it. Please leave a comment, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.